Hey guys, how y'all doing? This is going to be the very first RC tutorial video. This is going to be the very first basic flight, everything you need to know before taking your very first flight and then getting through that first flight. I'm going to be making a bunch of these videos going from this one at the very first to down the road at very extreme 3D flying. So starting off, we're going to be working with a 4-channel aircraft, which today we're going to be using the Apprentice, but you can use different ones. Try to use whatever is closest to what you have bought or are looking to buy. The E-flite Apprentice, in my opinion, and a few others' opinion, is the best 4-channel trainer that is in existence right now. If it is foam, so if you plan to go wood or nitro, the Next Star is a very good one, and they have a high wing trainer in here to replicate that. It's right here, but today we are going to be using a more popular setup, which is the E-flite Apprentice. So let me bring it over here real quick, taxi it over here. Alright, so starting off, for a 4-channel aircraft, there's 3 surfaces and throttle. So channel 1 is going to be your ailerons, and these control the roll of the aircraft. If you want to roll or bank to the right for a turn, the right aileron should go up, the left aileron should go down. And it's completely opposite. If you're rolling to the left aileron should go up and the right aileron should go down. Channel 2 is going to be your elevator. If you want to point the nose up, the elevator should go up as well when you pull the stick back. If you want to point the nose down, I would not recommend doing this as a beginner. Gravity takes care of that. But if you do want to point the nose down, the elevator will go down when you push the stick forward. Channel 3 is your throttle, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And channel 4 is your rudder. Rudder as a beginner isn't used very much in the flight. It's mostly used just for takeoff and landings. But for your very first flight, I would not worry a lot about it. Just try to take off very smoothly, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Pretty much we're going to be talking about smooth flight, small movements, all that good stuff. So we're going to take off here, and you can see my stick movements. Let's put them in view. Every movement is going to be very small, very minuscule, and it will still maintain full control of the aircraft, and I cannot stress that enough. Keep the movements small. So on takeoff, I don't know if you can see it, but if you look at the nose wheel, when I move the rudder, the nose wheel moves as well. And with pretty much every single aircraft, when you move the rudder, the nose wheel or tail wheel will follow in the same direction. So I'm going to be using a little bit of that on the takeoff and directing the landing, but throughout the flight, since this is going to be your first, I'm not going to be using it very much. So adding throttle, just using the rudder a little bit to keep it going straight, adding a little bit more. When it gets to a safe speed, pull back on the elevator and it lifts off the ground nice and easy. Gonna gain a little bit of altitude. Maybe I like to sit around 100 feet and then level out. When you get to your altitude, pull back on the stick a little bit. This airplane is a little bit like a car. Just because it can go 110 miles an hour doesn't mean you have to. You're gonna get pulled over or you're gonna crash. Sometimes you can recover with these foam planes, and sometimes if you crash hard enough, you're not going to. So keep the stick back. On this plane, I like to keep it around half throttle, and that's a pretty safe distance. Right now, my hands are completely off the remote, and it's going fairly straight. And that's what you're going to see with a lot of this. It's not as hard as you think. RC flying is actually very, very simple if you let it be simple. So first, what you want to start off as a beginner is making nice, smooth, level flight. Keep the same altitude. As a beginner, you are going to lose a little bit of altitude in turns like that. That's why you want to keep the same altitude. As soon as you get done with the turn, climb back up, level out, and then keep going on. As you get better, you'll be able to make nice, smooth turns that maintain the same altitude, just like that. So practice making nice oval-shaped turns, and that's going to help you get very good, very fast, and maintaining the same altitude. And always remember that altitude is your friend. Altitude and small movements is what you want. Because if you overcorrect, which you don't want to do, you're going to be flopping around all over the place, and people are going to think you're out of control, and pretty much like that, that does not look good. Just because your hands are doing a lot does not mean it's good. Do very little. You don't want to move the stick very much. As you can see, to make a turn, I'm barely moving the stick. It does not take a lot. Very simple. After you get fairly good, go from ovals, and if your airfield or wherever you're flying allows it, try to make figure eights. Some airfields, they don't like that. They like just ovals. But figure eights are going to teach you to turn both directions very smooth, and it'll be turning more than flying straight, and that's going to improve your skill a little better. But never forget, keep the same altitude. If you lose altitude on a turn, that's okay. Don't make a turn until you get back up. Alright, after we talked about that, let's talk about turning. Basically on a turn, what you're going to want to do is you're going to make a little bit of aileron roll and then pull slightly back on the elevator. When you add these two together, you're going to see the plane start to bank. Pull back on the elevator and a nice smooth bank. What you don't want to do as a beginner is turn too sharply, and you're going to end up with this. And it's just, you might be able to pull out of it, but it's not going to look very good, and it's going to be bad. Usually what will happen is you'll bank and then start to dive. So you don't want to do that. You want to stay up, bank just a little bit, and then make a nice wide smooth turn, just like that. Perfect. So now that we talked about that, let's talk about making an approach to land so you can get that first flight in and go high five your buddies. So what we're going to first want to do is make a nice wide approach to allow for margin of error. Come in, lower our throttle, and see how I'm way out there. This is going to allow me to make mistakes, which you're going to make mistakes as a beginner. So as you're coming down, just keep the movements very small and use the elevator and throttle. Touch down, cut throttle, and let it roll to a stop. Very simple. Let's go through that one more time, the landing part of it. So don't do this as a beginner. We're just going to make a nice approach. So making the approach again, if you feel like the plane is falling too quickly, do not pull back on the elevator. Try to keep the elevator at the same distance and the same throw. Just add throttle and you'll raise up, just like that. If you feel like you're going to overshoot it, you can pull back on the throttle completely and let it glide in. So get used to coming in with a little bit of throttle, touching down, cutting it, and letting it roll to a stop. Very simple. One big thing that a lot of people do is they psych themselves out. If you think you're going to crash, well, you're going to crash. Don't psych yourself out. Confidence is key in this hobby. Especially if you turn too sharp and go into a dive, you will start to freak out. You'll over control the plane and it'll go into the ground. So remember to always keep your calm, breathe, and just try not to freak out at all. And your first flight will be awesome. Alright, have fun. Check in later for another video.